It's the Morning Marketing Machine, here to grow your e-commerce business with proven marketing strategies and tactics, so you can run your business with machine-like precision. My name is Douglas Levin. Let's dive in. Welcome to Morning Marketing Machine, and I have a very special guest today. So Tony Sagar has been a lifelong entrepreneur. In his early 20s, he partners with his brother, and they grew a small single retail store to a 10-store chain in Toronto, doing over 8 million a year. In 2015, he turned to e-commerce. Obviously, that's everyone here is listening to, where he achieved 1 million in sales on Amazon within first 2 years. So Tony has personally mentored dozens of students that want to be entrepreneurs in conjunction with the Canadian Training Institute. So welcome to the show, Tony.
Thank you, Douglas. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have you here. One of the things I did want to ask you for people that may not know, I mean, I was like, I've seen you around a lot of the same kind of
Yeah.
Amazon groups and e-commerce groups, but for people that may not know, if you can tell them a little bit about how you got started and how you kind of came to be in terms of where you're at right now.
Sure. I always term myself sort of the reluctant entrepreneur. A lot of people, they were like, selling lemonade at the age of 12 on the sidewalk. And I was sort of reluctant, you know what I mean? Everybody wants to be more social and they want to hang out with their friends. And entrepreneur can be sort of a lonely life. You know what I mean? It's not, so it really takes that right mindset. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that later. And I still remember I graduated from York University, and I really wasn't having a lot of success finding a job. And I opened my first retail business in downtown Toronto called Bedding Express, and we just sold mattresses. You know, and it was the first time I got my sort of feet wet on my own. And it lasted for a couple of years. But what happened was I joined forces with my brother, and we took a small sort of linen store that we had. Think of it as like a mini sort of Bed Bath and Beyond, and we grew it really well in the Toronto area where I live. And it was really satisfying to know that you can really achieve something when you put your effort into it, your dedication. you know and the great thing what happened was we found that when I started entering ecom world in 2015, that the traditional bricks and mortar business was really taking a downturn. The internet was really changing everything, and we had to change our business model quickly. Otherwise, we would just be like a dinosaur. And that's when we made the transition to online. You know, and it's been just a wonderful journey since then.
Awesome. One of the things that, as you're talking there, I wanted to kind of get into as well. So when you're starting with your brother, in more of the retail side of things in terms of your shop, like what goes into that? Like, did you have any experience at all in terms of at that point, or was it more just like I want to do this, I want to I can't have regrets in life, like because a lot like I know like most of the people listening today are going to be like business owners and we're business owners, but we're the exception. Like what kind of goes into your head when you're like, all right, yeah, let's do this, and then obviously from there when you're figuring out, all right, now we got to make that pivot too. Like what's going on in your head when you're trying to get to that point when you're just getting started.
Yeah, I think you know what, when your back is against the wall, and that happens for everybody in different areas of life, that's when you put all your focus, all your energy into that one thing. You know what I mean? And I think that's what it was. I still remember we opened our current location here where we do all our warehousing and we have our offices in 1996. you know and that's when I think around that time Amazon was just starting out, was sort of in its infancy. And the thing was, I think the problem that we had is we did not focus enough on the internet in the beginning because retail was still doing really well. Our sales were increasing every year, and we had a false sense of hope, really. For the next 10 years we did really well because it was like it was an either or relationship. It was every the pie was big enough for everybody. And I think for us that the key was that we were able to really take notice of those changes and pivot when a lot of people just keep doing the same old thing and hoping they'll get a different result.
Mhm. So what you talked about there, I also want to kind of get into a little bit too, in terms of you were able to find that with e-commerce. Like what went into that in terms of a lot, like as you were saying, a lot of people they've got that one strategy, it works, and then it doesn't work, and they're screwed.
Yeah.
So you were able to actually see, all right, well, it's coming, and obviously, like last year with the virus, it went into overdrive, but you were able to obviously get out ahead of it. So like, what did you see at that point? Like, because I know there's a lot of those kind of mattress stores and other places that are out there where they're gone, and like you look at those brick and mortar stores and they're gone. Like 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 how were you able to kind of to see at even 5 years ago? I mean, a lot like you're one of the rare exceptions. What went into that thought process to figure it out?
Yeah, I think it's great that when if you have somebody to really either mentor you or bounce ideas off of each other, and that's what I always recommend, and that's what I personally do for younger people is to mentor them and bounce ideas. In my case, I had a partnership with my brother, and I still remember about 6, 7 years ago, we sat down and we had traditionally Christmas and Boxing Days our busiest time of year, and sales were down, and we weren't sure what to do, and we really thought about, okay, what are our options, where do we want to be, and where and how should we change things, and went through a whole list of policies, and the first thing was really to make that really push online as much as possible. I mean, at that point, I wasn't buying a lot online. You know what I mean? I was still sort of the traditional person buying stuff bricks and mortar, because that's sort of the environment that I grew up in. And and I still remember when I had my first sort of limited success on from our own website, from Amazon, where we started, getting these orders, and I don't think, okay, how can we double down on that? Like, what do I have to do to maximize that? And literally, I went and got every single book that I could find on Amazon. I went on YouTube, and it's kind of a lot of similar stories from people. You just want to learn and get as much content as you can. I don't know if it's true or not, but I learned Jeff Bezos eats octopus for breakfast. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what they said.
Yeah, and since you opened the door in terms of books, I mean that's something I know on my end has
Yeah,
had a huge impact. And you talked a little bit. I know I've seen you talk on in groups and other stuff. You
yeah,
talk about 48 Laws of Power and other books. Like
yeah.
what books really helped you at that point, like when you're getting started on the Amazon side and now as well.
Yeah. Well, for me, I talk about 48 laws of power in terms of my personal growth, which is expanded onto business. I still remember, this is going back about almost 15 years ago, when I was going through a very bad personal divorce. And I was looking through some books that I had, and it was a small little travel version of the 48 laws of power. And I went through that. I didn't get a lot out of it at the time. Slowly, I read it again. I read it again, and it really taught me um, a lot of things which are sort of out there, but they're really not spoken about. Like we live in a world of hierarchical relationships. There's a hierarchy involved, and it's really know to how to play that game. You know what I mean? It's a very controversial book for sure. You know what I mean? Some people they don't really like some of the material there, and I'm not like, hey, I'm going to take everything and like it's gospel. I always say, take a piece of content, find the best that you can relate to it, and grow it towards your needs, and discard the rest if it doesn't work for you.
Mhm.
you know so that book really helped me out. I talk about it a lot. you know um, I've been just reading right now The Brand Story, which is a great book. I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks, so it really helps people break down how to really create a brand, what is a brand, and all the sort of niche techniques that we talk about, whether it's email marketing or SEO, and those are the kind of strategies I find that really help small business owners.
So what would you say has been your favorite book in terms of that side of things, like the email and the marketing and everything else that you've read recently?
You know what? I listened to one book called The Revisionists, really, from Michelle Romano. And you may have heard of her. She's the founder of a company called Clearbank.
Okay.
Now, they've really revolutionized the lending space. You know, they're a Canadian-based company, even though they did start off in California, because she's got a lot of contacts. And she's on the Canadian version of Shark Tank called Dragon's Den here, and and she actually did a bunch of interviews with entrepreneurs, and it was very, very interesting for me. I mean, I literally wrote down the word iterate. I mean, I was looking at the vocabulary at some of the most successful entrepreneurs, and they would keep repeating certain words. And it really got me thinking that even our vocabulary is very important to our mindset and our success.
Yeah, that's definitely something I know. A lot of the books that I've read, they talk about the idea of like positive mindset versus negative mindset,
Yeah.
and it's something as simple as um, like the way you say something to yourself, positive versus negatively, can have a huge impact in terms of like your life going forward. So yeah, I definitely would agree with that thought. One of the things I did want to ask you, obviously we're talking about the divorce, and I've been divorced as well. And I know for me it was probably one of the worst points in my life when I dealt
Mhm.
with it. Like, would you say that was the worst point of your life, and or
It
what?
was it was it was such a learning process for me because of the fact that what happened in my case is I was going through what's known as litigation fatigue.
Mhm,
So the lawyers' fees went on for years, and and what happened was our my business was sort of going downhill at that point,
mhm,
right? So it was sort of the perfect storm with business going down and legal fees going up, and I was actually at the point like like 6 7 years ago when I was googling bankruptcy trustees,
mhm,
and to me I think that's been my biggest sort of motivation is sort of the level of success I've achieved, because as entrepreneurs we have these low moments and the highs, and and when I was really low, like I mean like when I'm googling bankruptcy trustees, and that's when I really had to search down and really dig deep. And I think when we all do that, it's a very rewarding experience.
So when you're at that point, like what helps you get ultimately get out of it? Like obviously you're talking about the digging deep, but
Yeah.
like
Well, I mean, I figured I had to take everything into my own hands. Like in terms of my divorce, I told my lawyer I don't have any more money,
mhm,
and um and I'm gonna handle this myself. So I went all day on the internet and figured out all the laws and stuff, and I used my lawyer as outside counsel. So I would just pay her a small fee for just some advice, and I took care of all that on the remaining part on my own. You know what I mean? And the same thing would happen for our success on e-commerce, where the retail stores weren't doing well, and I just had to learn everything about e-commerce, because if that's the way of the future, I mean, like there's no other option, right? And when your back is against the wall, I think that's the biggest motivator for most people.
so would you say that that's what ultimately helps you most is you kind of put yourself in that position even when you're to the level that you're at now, just kind of keep thinking back or like
Yeah, I use that all the time. I think about I have those moments that I think back because it helps motivate me when we talk about mindset, because I know that success is very fickle. You know what I mean? Your sales going up for a couple years in a row, and you could easily be going downhill tomorrow. Your account on Amazon can be suspended, and all these sorts of things. So it helps me to keep me grounded. You know what I mean? To really think about the future and take a calculated risk where possible instead of betting the whole farm.
yeah, that's definitely a great thought. And one of the things I wanted to ask you as well, you're talking about obviously being back against the wall, and going through everything that you went through. Now that what this is one of the questions that I always want to ask people to kind of figure out, because what's the purpose for you doing what you do at this point? Like that helps get you through it.
Yeah, I would say it's the end goal, which is it'll give me the financial freedom to do what I like, which is to travel or photography or spend time with my friends or music. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say to you, hey, I'm the biggest fan when it comes to SEO and Bing and all these millions of things, but I've learned to enjoy it and find areas where I have my success and where I don't, and my strengths, because I realize, hey, this is what I'm good at. This is what pays the bills. And that's fine. You know what I mean? In a perfect world, if I could come up with a strategy to lie on the beach all day long and pay the bills, I would do that too, right? But I think it's keeping the end goal in mind. You know what I mean? Because I lost a lot of money during that divorce. You know what I mean? A lot of savings, and for me, it's a priority to really start building for my retirement.
Mhm.
And I think that's what motivates me every day, is to get up there and know, hey, listen, in a couple of years, my house could be paid off. And it's amazing. 10 years ago, I thought I would never afford a house again.
Mhm.
And it's just, it shows you that you have to be persistent and really don't give up.
Mhm. So you talked about like in a perfect world where you could lay on a beach, right? So one of the things I want to ask you, so what parts of the business do you actually like love, and you're like, all right, this is what I'm here for. This is what I really want to do.
Yeah. You know what? I think I like certain aspects. I like SEO. I like directing things. What I like doing is really following the Gary Vee strategy of focusing on the macro
Hmm.
and directing a team to institute your micro points that you need to get in. But I can't get in involved in every little small little detail, because then it wouldn't allow me to get to the big picture. And I think that's the key takeaway that I've sort of understood the last few years, and I try to impart that in other people as well. Like we hired a new personal assistant this year, and the key is, first I was worried, hey, do I have enough stuff to give her to keep her busy? And I realized how much time I'm saving every day in terms of a million things to do, and emails and things. And it's that sort of knowledge that I've learned from other people, and I sort of want to impart that on others as well.
So what went into your process as you're trying to find somebody, like so it's not just like you're giving it up on them or whatever, but like what was your process for finding somebody at that point?
Yeah, well, I did a blog post episode recently on LinkedIn. I talked about really what's known as open sourcing versus closed sourcing when it comes to sourcing, really. And the biggest difference is we know open source in terms of software, where we share information, and closed source, obviously, we don't. And the same thing really applies to a lot of these websites, because it started with me when it comes to Fiverr, where I want to do a screen share with some of these people, and I got a message from Fiverr saying they might close my account because I'm trying to go off to the platform. And
Mhm.
that's when I started digging in, because there's other platforms which what I call open source, like FreeUp, where they kind of recruit the best people, and they'll tell you, hey, you can meet with them and screen share and all that, because they're not worried about people leaving their platform.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I think, to me, that's a very interesting way to do it, because every platform has the same issue, right? Amazon has the same issue. They don't want us to have the customers' information because they don't want going direct and cutting out Amazon. And and I understand that, you know what I mean? So I'd say the majority of the people, we stay right on the platform, but that's where you want to do is really dig into those platforms, find people that you're comfortable with, and then find that they can do the work that you need. Like in my case, I need somebody who could do all the little nitty gritty with Amazon. They could create cases, they could do variations, and all that. So I worked with this individual, say, for 6 months, just a la carte piecemeal,
Mhm.
until I felt comfortable to offering them a full time job and saying, okay, you work for me directly, because that I can train you for all the other things that you don't know about. And I
Yeah.
think that's um, sort of strategy that I've seen from other people, and it's been working for me as well.
Nice. And so what are the parts that you try, like are they more of the stuff that you don't love to do, or like what are the parts of the business that you try and outsource to them in general?
Yeah, for example, a lot of the social media,
Mhm.
um, we outsource our graphic design, we outsource our video editing,
Mhm.
copywriting at times, um, wherever I can free up my time, but I can still direct the things, the process, so I can still get sort of the results that I need without me having to get deeply involved in every little thing. Because sometimes I look at some of these very successful people and I wonder how they do it right on their own. without a team of assistants. Because I always say you're only as good as your team.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, I think us as business owners, you kind of have to walk that fine line, right? Because we're the type of people that we want to get it done, and we're going to keep working at it until we get there. But then you also have that mindset. Well, I'm the one who will get it done. But if you're actually going to grow and scale to any level other than like a solopreneur, then you're going to have to work on those processes. You're going to have to come up with a team, and take things off your plate, or you're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah, and I think related with that, you really want to build out a good set of SOPs.
Mhm.
And now with video being so popular, and I mean, I don't know about you, I use Loom videos like constantly all day long,
Mhm.
sending little videos to my team all day. And it's the same thing. We set up a bunch of SOPs to explain to people, okay, this is our procedure to do this, this, this. And it really helps to really streamline that process.
Awesome. So one of the things that you talked about a little earlier, and I want to come back to it, was your love of travel photography. How has that been working out since obviously everything that's going on the last year? Like, have you still gotten a chance to do that? Is it something you're trying to hopefully in the future you'll be able to do? Like some of those things that
Yeah,
you're not able to
yeah.
do.
I mean, it's obviously very difficult for most people, including myself. I haven't been able to travel much. I've done one little trip to Niagara Falls in the last 1 year. It was just over a year ago. I had returned back. I had gone to Africa, which was amazing. I really wanted to volunteer at an elephant sanctuary and go to all sorts of different places and go on safari. It was just an amazing experience when you see animals in their natural habitat as opposed to the zoo or even Disney World. It's I found it was a really different experience. It really is.
Nice. So one of the things I also wanted to ask you is, as you're trying to get everything done, like during the day, like there's a book that I read called The One Thing, by Gary Keller, and he talks about like that one thing that's going to make everything a lot easier. So as you're outsourcing a lot of the stuff you don't need to do, and you're trying to figure out like from that macro level how you're going to get this going, like what's your most important thing right now?
I would say definitely um, the outlook of the company. I mean, I'm looking at the macro of where are we in the process of sourcing new products? Where are we in the process of iterating and updating our current products? It looks I can really look at that stage in our business cycle to say, okay, where are we in the cycle? Are we forecasting? Are we making the right sort of decisions? You know what I mean? And I think that's what it really frees up my time when I don't have to get into the micro sort of things.
Oh, cool. So you had spoken a little bit earlier about some of the issues you've had and some of your motivations for kind of
Yeah.
overcoming when you get there, and when you're at those situations. I know for me personally, there's still times, no matter what happens, that it's just not working right for you. You need to either take time off, you need to take time away. Like what helps you in those situations when you're um, like you've got a project that's due, like you're trying to work on something, and for whatever reason you just are not like feeling it, or you just can't get past that stumbling block. What helps you at that point?
Well, in my case, we set up sort of a gym here in our studio. So we've got a location here where we do our own warehousing, and we've got offices and all that. So we set up a nice gym for the last year. I'm able to kind of work out and really relieve some stress. It really helps me. So what I do is I go work out, take a little break, and then I might message somebody in my contacts who could maybe help me out. If I'm stuck on something, hey, you know what I mean? Because I always say to somebody, hey, it's not if, but when. If your Amazon account is suspended, you should know right away who's the first person you're going to contact.
Hmm.
I know I did. I had my account suspended 4 years ago. It wasn't a good feeling.
Hmm.
And now I have that person ready. I know who I would contact because I've worked with that person and all that. So they would have the most knowledge in most cases and things like that. I always feel that prepare for that rainy day. And I always tell everybody be proactive than reactive.
Hmm.
And that's the number one thing, because if you're waiting for the hammer to come down and something to happen, I think depending on the level of your business, if you're doing big numbers, 6, 7, 8 figures, you need to be proactive. You can't just take a chance on things.
Mm. So when you're in that situation, like, did it take that suspension 4 years ago for you to find that, or were you like looking at other people and um, you're like, what was your process to try and find those people that could help you in those situations?
Well, when you come back to that suspension part, 4 or 5 years ago when we just started and we weren't doing that well, we just started getting our feet wet. We got suspended, and I have no problem telling you it was for an organic mattress. So I do not sell mattresses anymore. I wouldn't recommend it, although um, it's a great business to be in. But I would say a company like Casper, they're still not profitable, because they spent too much on marketing. And what I learned from that experience is I did the opposite of outsourcing. At that point, I was so busy, I was letting other people handle Amazon. And once I saw that, hey, they didn't handle that situation right, that was it. I took over. I handled the appeal, and I went and learned every single thing about Amazon, because I felt, hey, this is like the Amazon business was growing, and I felt, hey, like if it could be at risk, I can't let that happen, and that really woke me up.
Oh. Yeah, and I know so many people that have been in the Amazon space that have dealt with suspension or something else along those lines. Like the reason why I shifted my model was I had some of those used sold as new complaints and
Yeah.
things like that. So yeah, I've always been of the mindset of I love Amazon as a platform, but I don't want it to be my sole source of income just because of all of that stuff that goes on.
I agree with you totally. In fact, anything the last year to year and a half, we've been working on really diversifying our business model and not being so dependent. So I know tomorrow, if there's our suspension would happen again, we wouldn't have to really shut the doors right away or anything like that. Where we have a brand and people know us, so we're really bringing that out, trying to make people brand ambassadors. That's one of our biggest things this year is I've been experimenting with sending Loom videos to customers actually.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, and it's actually working. People are intrigued, like, "Hey, what's this?" Because in the B2B space, they're very common, but not so much in the direct to consumer. And people are, so I'm just looking at ways to catch people's attention and get your name out there. And if we can get them to become brand ambassadors, because that's great. Because I'm looking at other people that are successful. What are they doing? And how can we sort of emulate that in our own style, and because it's really hard to reinvent that wheel.
Mhm. And that sounds very similar to. Are you familiar with the app Bonjour at all?
Yeah, I think I've
Yeah,
heard of
it
it.
sounds very similar to that, right? In terms of that kind of reach out to customers and yeah, like personalized videos at that point.
Yeah, for sure. No, you know what I mean? Because they contacted me recently, so I was thinking about that. I was just thinking of a way to automate the whole system. So I haven't found a software yet, um, but it's just some way that we can feel that a customer they're getting a personalized experience rather than a cookie cutter sort of contact, and then they might not take it so seriously.
Yeah, yeah, that's like actually like one of our mutual friends, Carlos Alvarez,
Yeah,
like he talked about in the past the book Superfans by Pat
yeah.
Flynn, and that was like a game changer for me in terms of some of those same aspects of like how can you build your list of superfans, that same kind of process. I mean, that's kind of the name of the game when you're talking about like e-commerce in general. Even if you're on the Amazon platform, if you can build up your own list at that point, it makes things so much easier. Um,
Yeah, that's exactly what my number one goal for this year is to really grow our email list exponentially. And that's why I like that last video that you had given me that link to as well, because we're going to install that software as well.
Awesome. I'm glad I could help, man. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. But you, one thing I wanted to ask you, I guess, as well before we kind of get too far in. You talked about the travel, you talked about the photography, but
Yeah.
what's something about you that people may not know?
I would say that I really I'm a introvert at heart,
Hmm.
but I've learned to be an extrovert in business. And what I've learned is in business and in life is you really need to remove the sense of ego. You know, if people take away the sense of ego and really take away from the fact that they may have felt slighted in a certain way or whatever, and just try to look at the big picture. You know what I mean? That's I find really it's been really beneficial for me. And I'll just give you one example when it comes to even networking. You know, we're in the age of COVID right now, but previously when I've gone to ecom or Amazon events and stuff, the first thing I do is I'm going to right click to find out if I can get a coupon code.
Mhm.
And it's amazing when I talk to people at events, 90% of people don't even do that, to get a coupon code. And I actually have a game plan when I go to these events, and I sort of note down who are the big note speakers who are going to be there, the well-known people, and so I know who they are. I have a list of questions that I want to ask them. You know what I mean? And you have to really get in there because everybody wants to talk to those people and make a contact with those people. And it's about getting noticed. And I still remember I talked about this in Clubhouse recently where there's somebody really well known a couple of years ago. I had him scouted out from the beginning. A guy got in there, had a couple of drinks, and I got what I needed. He gave me a coupon code for Helium 10 that I'm still using today. And I'm saving $100 a month on
Wow.
that. You know what I mean? A couple of years ago, and it was all because it didn't happen just organically. I knew I wanted to talk to him. I knew the questions that I wanted to ask him, and I kept that in my mind because I know I'll have a limited time. You got to make usage of that, and those are the sort of strategies I think people can really take away.
So as someone who's an introvert, then like I consider myself an introvert as well. Like what helps you in those situations? Because like I've always kind of thought myself something like, all right, I don't ever want to talk to anybody, but if I'm gonna be in that situation, I'm gonna put myself out there and I'm gonna do what I need to do. Like what helps you in those situations as an introvert when you're obviously got your own podcast and you're a business owner and you're doing everything that you're talking about. Like what helps you in those situations to kind of get past that initial, I don't know if it's fear, but like the hesitancy to kind of want to be out there at the point.
I think it's all about mindset. It
Mhm.
really is. You know what I mean? I've found the last few years in combination of with the exercise is really the meditation and that I've been doing, and that's meditation is really, really, I think the key to that is the breathing. Figuring out the breathing exercises helps really calm you down and change your mindset to to not take anything so seriously, remove any sense of ego and know that you're doing it with a game plan, a sense of purpose. You know what I mean? Because it's going to benefit you, like I saw in my own experiences. Because sure, maybe if I had my own wish, I would be doing something that I personally loved and just playing video games or whatever. But that's the real world is we have to do things that we may not always like, and they help us grow as a person. And and if I use that mindset in everything, I think it helps me really get over any sort of personal concerns or fears that I have.
Mhm. So what's your favorite meditation app, or what do you use for it?
I don't use a lot of apps. I'll just have a couple of playlists that I use on Spotify. But what I really like to do is try to go on a lot of the videos on what I'll see on Instagram or Facebook, YouTube, and just try to get some poses, some interesting things, because I still remember years ago, just going back to my high school days, I played football. So I still remember, a lot of the exercises that you did when you played sports as well. So you want to kind of incorporate those things because, like you said, our bodies are changing as we go older, and it's you want to really kind of maintain them.
Mhm. So since you talked about obviously meditation, you've talked about books.
Yeah.
This kind of gets into a question that I always seem to want to know from people is like, what kind of morning routine do you have? Is that part of it, or what helps you to get ready to attack the day?
Well, one of the things that I've been doing now since we is that I tend to have late meetings. You know what I mean? So I'll have a morning meeting with my assistant because they're in a different time zone in India. So if I'm having a meeting at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for them it's say 9:30 in the morning. So my usual routine is I'm probably in bed by 11:30, 12, and then um, I like to make sure one of the things that makes me productive is not schedule too much. You know what I mean? Have one, two appointments every day versus three, four, five in a day, and you're just running around. Because for us, it's a case of there's always an emergency. You get an email here, I get somebody calling me here. They want an opinion on this, so it's hard to block off your time, and it's really managing the right amount of time that you feel that you can devote to something.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I think that's something that a lot of people don't really think about. You're always in the, you're like, oh yeah, I can do 5,000 things at once or whatever it is, but you don't really think about all of those fires that are going to come up every day when you're trying to plan out your days. So yeah, I definitely would agree with that part.
Yeah, yeah.
So heading down the home stretch. I don't want to keep you too long. I want to be respectful of your time, but I wanted to thank you so much for coming on today and sharing some of your stories, some of your expert insight. So I wanted to also ask you lastly, how can our listeners find out more about what you're doing?
Sure. I would definitely encourage them to reach out on LinkedIn. You know what I mean? That's where I do my own podcast. I was like inspired by Gary Vee, and it's a short, a 5-10 minute sort of a fireside chat in terms of what's going on, my sort of thoughts. That's a great way to reach out because I think through the power of networking, and that's how we can all grow. You know what I mean? In terms of make building these relationships, and who knows, 6 months from now, a year from now, I might remember something, or somebody else might send me a message, and that's how we can really grow our businesses and our lives.
Awesome. And I'll definitely have a link for that for everyone that wants to check that out as well. Yeah, he's got a great channel. You should definitely check it out. So thank you so much, Tony. And thank you so much for everyone listening, and talk to you guys next time on Morning Marketing Machine. All right. Bye.
Cheers.